What if the most intense competition in the world isn't happening on red carpets or in boardrooms, but quietly, inside a family everyone thinks they understand? What if the Kardashian empire wasn't built only on loyalty and unity, but also on a rivalry so subtle, so normalized, that it became invisible? The hidden rivalry between the Kardashian sisters isn't loud, explosive, or openly hostile. It's psychological, and that's what makes it so powerful. From the outside, the Kardashians sell a story of sisterhood, united fronts, shared success, mutual support, a family that rises together. And on the surface, that story is true. They collaborate, promote one another, and protect the brand as a collective. But beneath that cooperation exists something far more human and far more complicated: constant comparison. When siblings grow up in an ordinary household, rivalry usually fades with age. Lives separate, paths diverge, space creates relief. But in the Kardashian family, separation never happened. The sisters didn't just grow up together, they built their identities side by side, under the same spotlight, measured by the same audience, using the same metrics of success. And when comparison becomes structural, rivalry doesn't disappear, it evolves. Each sister occupies a specific role. One is framed as the visionary. One is the rebel, one is the business strategist, one is the relatable one, one is the aesthetic ideal. These roles weren't assigned randomly. They formed through audience reaction, media framing, and internal adaptation. Over time, those roles hardened into expectations. And once expectations exist, competition becomes inevitable. Because even if you love your sister, you still want to be the one who stands out. The rivalry isn't about hatred. It's about relevance. In a family where attention equals power, visibility becomes currency, and currency is limited. When one sister dominates a moment, another inevitably recedes. That dynamic creates tension, even when it's unspoken, especially when it's unspoken. One of the most overlooked aspects of this rivalry is how early it started. Long before billion-dollar brands, the sisters were already being compared. Who was prettier? Who was more charismatic? Who was more interesting on camera? Those comparisons didn't come from within at first. They came from the outside. But repeated long enough, external comparison becomes internal pressure. The family system rewarded adaptability. Sisters learned to differentiate themselves to survive. If one leaned into glamour, another leaned into control. If one embraced chaos, another embraced discipline. These differences weren't just personality traits. They were strategies. And strategies, by nature, compete. What makes this rivalry hidden is how functional it is. It doesn't break the family. It fuels it. Competition pushes innovation. It sharpens positioning. It forces reinvention. But it also creates emotional strain. Because constantly redefining yourself in relation to your siblings makes it hard to feel fully secure in who you are. Have you ever noticed how success within the family is rarely celebrated equally? Achievements are acknowledged, but subtly ranked. Who launched bigger? Who earned more? Who dominated headlines longer? These hierarchies aren't announced, but everyone feels them. And when hierarchy exists, rivalry follows. Another layer of this dynamic is parental influence. When one parent becomes the manager, the strategist, the architect of opportunity, emotional boundaries blur. Validation and success become intertwined. Approval feels earned through performance. And siblings, even as adults, continue competing for symbolic positioning, not just financial outcomes. The sisters are also competing against different timelines. One peaked earlier, another later. Some reinvented, some stabilized. And timing matters. Because watching a sibling rise while you're recalibrating creates quiet insecurity, even if you're wildly successful by any normal standard. What's fascinating is how rarely this rivalry is acknowledged openly. Not because it doesn't exist, but because naming it would destabilize the brand. The Kardashian narrative relies on unity. Conflict is edited. Tension is reframed as misunderstanding. And real rivalry is buried beneath humor, sarcasm, or silence. But rivalry doesn't need confrontation to exist. It lives in subtle shifts. In who speaks more. In who withdraws. In who suddenly rebrands. In who goes quieter after another's success. These movements are not coincidences. They are emotional responses within a competitive ecosystem. Kylie's evolution is a clear example of this. Her early meteoric rise disrupted the internal balance. Suddenly, the youngest wasn't just participating, she was dominating. That shift forced everyone to recalibrate their positions. Some leaned harder into legacy, some into credibility, some into control. When one sibling changes the hierarchy, the entire system adjusts. If you're finding this look into family dynamics and power structures compelling, pause here for a moment. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment about whether you think rivalry within families is inevitable when success is shared publicly. Your perspective adds depth to this discussion. Another hidden cost of sibling rivalry at this scale is emotional isolation. When your closest peers are also your competitors, vulnerability becomes risky. You hesitate to share doubts. You mask insecurity. You perform confidence even at home. And that can be deeply lonely, especially when the world assumes you're surrounded by support. There's also rivalry in authenticity. Who is more real? Who is more relatable? Who feels less manufactured? These questions matter in a culture that rewards perceived honesty, and competing for authenticity is paradoxical because the moment it feels strategic, it loses value. The public plays a role too. Fans pick sides. Media narratives pit sisters against each other, even subtly. Praise for one often implies critique of another, and over time, those narratives seep inward. No matter how strong a family bond is, constant external framing influences internal perception. What keeps this rivalry from becoming destructive is shared interest. The brand is bigger than any one sister. Collective success protects individual status, so competition is regulated, controlled, managed. That control makes the rivalry sustainable, but it doesn't erase it. The hidden rivalry between the Kardashian sisters isn't a scandal. It's a system, a byproduct of growing up together in an environment where comparison never stopped and success was always visible. It's not about wanting another sister to fail. It's about wanting to matter just as much. And that desire is profoundly human. Would you feel competitive with your siblings if the world constantly ranked you side by side? Would love survive without tension if success was always measured publicly? These questions are uncomfortable because they reveal something we prefer to deny. Closeness doesn't cancel competition. Sometimes it intensifies it. The Kardashians mastered the art of turning rivalry into fuel, but fuel still burns, and the heat leaves marks, even when the engine runs smoothly. If you've stayed with this story until the end, subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think sibling rivalry is unavoidable when fame and power are shared, or do you believe it can be truly overcome? Your voice matters, and this conversation is far from over.